Okay, it's been about 5, 6 days since this was picked. Unfortunately, the AP2 is still quite hard, so this probably still has a couple of days to go. And because of that, we're not gonna be able to kind of do like a taste test versus taste test kind of format to see how it is. And this one's AP1. This one's soft. I'm gonna be opening this one to taste right now. So hopefully I could try to remember the flavor components and see if I could kind of compare it when the time comes. At least now I know, at least maybe with these larger fruits, I probably have to kind of give it a bit more time. So I could probably have to do a comparison with, I think the smaller fruits ripen faster than the larger fruits. So I'll put this to the side right now because unfortunately it's not ready yet. Okay, here is the AP1. Let's see, I'm gonna go ahead and open this up. I'm gonna try to open it up with my hands. So the AP breaks out into these like nice little segments, and if you don't let it get too soft, like these segments kind of hold on pretty well. Very sweet. It's pretty much a sugar bomb. Lots of time a good indication of when you open up these atamoyas or chelmoyas or whatever kind of known as this, when that is ready, it's usually it's usually most of the flesh is this kind of solid white, and you don't have kind of translucent seeds. So you open it up, you see a lot of kind of flesh where it's translucent, and you could kind of see into the seeds, and like kind of like the black seeds. Then you know that it's not really ready. That's one of the indication that it's not a really fully ripe fruit. So you want it to be kind of this white flesh where it's not translucent, where you could kind of see any kind of seeds. I mean, the seeds are there, but you don't want to be able to be translucent and see the seeds. The other indication is on most of them, they tend to have like this edge right here. And most varieties, not all, but most varieties tend to turn so what I was saying is most varieties, it kind of tends to turn from a green, this kind of flesh right underneath the skin, goes from green to more of like this kind of tan, yellowish brownish color. If it's still too green, then you know it's a little bit underripe. And most varieties tend to do this, but I don't think all of them do. And this is the chewiness that people kind of always kind of refer to and really like, is that flesh around the seeds. And you get a lot more of this from atamoyas versus certain chelmoyas. Usually the chelmoyas, there's not a lot of these texture around the seed. It's more like just kind of custody, soft flesh all around. So you don't get that kind of like firm texture around the seeds. And so it just kind of depends on what your preference is. Some people love this texture, and some people prefer a more cherimoya texture. So. Unfortunately, I noticed with a lot of AP, they tend to develop, I don't know what you call this, it's definitely a flaw in the fruit, where there's kind of like this almost grainy, hard texture around the seed or somewhere around the fruit. And this seems to happen quite often with the AP varieties. Doesn't happen with other varieties as much, such as Gefner or Lisa, but it does happen with the AP. As you can kind of see here, see this is kind of like a hard flesh. It's kind of grainy, almost kind of like a hard, how would I say, like a hard crystallized kind of like sugar, but it's not sweet or anything. There's not much taste to it. So the AP it's a very good fruit with the texture, very sweet, not as complex as the flavor. So you don't quite get as much as the other sub-acid components to the fruits, you don't get a lot of that. It's there, it's sweet and, has some acidity, but you don't get a lot of that with the AP too. This is what I talk about, like what people usually enjoy. And you let this get over ripened, sometimes it does get less firm and a bit more mushy. So very good sweet fruit, very sweet. Doesn't have much of an aroma to it. Kind of like the Lisa that has a really nice aroma. The Aka Sahan has a nice aroma to it, along with PPC. But you don't really kind of get that from the APs. It's just not there. So very sweet, hints of pear. No strong kind of like pineapple components or anything like that. The flesh around the seed is a little grainy, like most Antimoias are. Overall, this is a very good fruit, especially for those of you guys that have a sweet tooth. For you guys that have a very sweet Antimoias, this is the variety to be growing. The African Pride. It's a very sweet fruit. Not as complex a flavor. Mostly it's has components of pear, I would say, but not a lot of the kind of pineapple sub-acidness to it or anything like that. Okay, so that is my review of the AP2. Hopefully I'll try to remember a lot of this flavor, and then I'll compare it to this is the AP1 this right here, the smaller one. And I'll try to remember the flavors to this, and hopefully this video kind of helps me to recall those flavors when I compare it to the AP2. Okay. All right. So continuing on, this is AP2, so African Pride 2. Notice how the size on this right here. This is pretty much a 3-pound fruit right here. And this is in comparison to a can of soda, like what a Coke bottle would be. Kind of see the size. So on this variety, it maxes out, I mean, the largest I got on my tree in the past has probably been a 3.8 or 3.9 pound fruit, but that doesn't really happen too often. Lots of times more like a 3.25, 3.5 pound fruits, but they also have a lot of smaller ones too, like a pound and a pound and a half fruits. So this one's a 3-pound fruit compared to the AP1 that we just had, which was a 1.5 pound fruit. In comparison to a can of soda. So I am gonna, this has been sitting out about 2 more days longer than the other one. And I think because it's a bigger fruit, it does ripen from the inside out, so it's probably need a bit more time to ripen. So I'm gonna go ahead and cut this one in half and see how it looks like, and then we'll do a taste test. And I mentioned in the past, it was my guess the AP2 is probably the authentic African Pride, just because from my recollection 15-20 years ago, most of the growers of African Pride was pretty much in Australia, and from the forums and stuff and the pictures and everything from the discussions, they had always grown like fruits that were kind of huge fruits. You're talking about 3 to 5 pound fruits. Doesn't seem to get that large, at least in my tree, but that's my recollection of it, that they were pretty gigantic fruits. While the AP1, it does kind of max out from my own tree, maybe at 2.5 pounds. I may have got one before that was a 3-pounder, but most of the time it does max out at about 2.5 pounds. So I am going to go ahead and taste this. So the taste is, it's very sweet. This feels like it might have a little bit more sub-acid components to than the AP1. But it also runs into the same kind of flaw that I have with the other African pride, is sometimes it developed this kind of gritty texture around the flesh around the seed husk. And this one seems to have it. It seems to also have it. This is an example of that. Not really sure why it does that, but my guess is probably some kind of nutrition deficiency. But both the AP does have this. The Gefner doesn't have this, and the Lisa, I don't think I've seen it yet, but I can't be too certain. But this definitely doesn't happen with the Gefner. So very sweet fruit. There's still that kind of nice browning you see when within skin when it's ripe. This one we probably could have let it sit on the counter for another half a day or so. So very good fruit, very sweet. Has a lot of the firm texture that people love on this. And pretty much tastes pretty much exactly like the AP one. Texture might be a little bit different, but that's just probably because due to the size of the fruit, sometimes you get a little bit more flesh between the seed spaces. The one thing I did notice about the AP2, it might be due to the size or whatnot, or maybe it's just how it is. They do tend to hang on the tree a lot longer than Gefner, and I think a bit longer than the AP1 too. Okay, so that's my review on the African pride.